It was afternoon when Dustin arrived at the Harmon estate in a hurry after getting the news. He was greeted by the sight of armed soldiers surrounding the compound. Hundreds of armed men from the elite forces of the Harmon family guarded the entrance in what appeared to be a standoff, and both sides weren't about to back down. Harmons, I will make myself clear hand over the suspect, or we'll subject everyone to the same punishment, the commander in charge bellowed, his full voice echoing through the compound. Behind him, the soldiers stood stiffly while holding their guns. Once the commander gave his orders, these soldiers would shoot mercilessly. What's all this about? Dustin frowned at the violent confrontation. He wondered how the Harmons got involved with the military. Sir, what calls for the mobilization of these forces? Dustin went up to him and questioned. I was ordered to capture the suspect. Unrelated personnel, please leave the grounds right now. The commander barked in his face. Mr. Rhys, you're here. Please, come on in. Jack, the butler, immediately spotted Dustin and asked that the elite forces make way for Dustin to enter. The crowd parted before swiftly closing up the path again after Dustin made his way into the building. Listen up, people in there. I'll give you half an hour. If you refuse to hand the suspect over, do not blame us for forcing our way in there. The commander gave his final warning, but the elite forces did not budge at all, even if they had to risk death. Mr. Rhys, Ms. Harmon is in the meeting room. Please come with me. Jack ignored the commander's threats and led the way. A perplexed Dustin followed closely behind him. The meeting room of the Harmon estate was filled to the brim. The core members of the family convened at the venue. They were whispering to each other. Meanwhile, Trent Harmon sighed with a troubled expression while Jacob Harmon paced the room. Apprehensively. Natasha and a few others stayed by the side of an unconscious Hector Harmon. Natasha, what's wrong? Dustin showed up in the room with a solemn look. Dustin, you've arrived at the right time. Please check on my dad. Natasha's face lit up, and she frantically pulled Dustin over to a pale and sweaty Hector, who had bloodstains on his outfit. Without further ado, Dustin performed a detailed checkup on Hector and announced, Your dad is weak because he has recently recovered from a grave illness. To top that off, he was drinking like a fish, and that's why he fainted. He should be fine. That's good to hear. A relieved sigh escaped from Jessica's lips. Can you wake him up? Natasha asked. Yes, but I wouldn't recommend that. It would be best to just let him rest, Dustin replied. We're running out of time. We need to wake him up, or else the family will be doomed. Natasha did not look like she was joking. Is it that serious? Eyes twitching, he immediately took 3 needles and inserted them into Hector's pressure points between the brows, near the front hairline, and right under his nose. Soon after, Hector's eyes fluttered open. Dad, do you recall what happened last night? Natasha immediately asked. Last night. Hector rubbed his head and said groggily. Last night, it was the birthday event of the regional deputy chief, Sir Moran. I was drinking at his place. Why? Dad, did you do anything else than drink? Natasha pressed on. What do you mean? He was puzzled by her questions. Dad, think carefully. You can't make a mistake here. She was dead serious. I think I blacked out from drinking. I can't remember a thing. What happened? Hector frowned softly. Natasha finally dropped the bomb. Dad, Sir Moran's daughter was dead. She's dead. He was stunned by the news. How did that happen? We don't have the details yet, but rumors had it that you were the murderer, Natasha informed him. Did they say I was the murderer? He was completely lost. Eyes bulging, he shook his head vehemently. No, that's impossible. No matter how drunk I am, I would not kill someone. He might be a lightweight, but he was a well-behaved drunk. Normally, he'd be dead asleep after he was drunk and never made a scene. I don't believe them either, but witnesses claimed they saw you murder her. Sir Moran's forces are at our door, and they will force their way in at any time. Think carefully. Did you do it or not? Natasha growled. The regional deputy chief was the third in command in Millsburg, and he had the power to ruin the Harmons with a command. I really can't recall a thing, but I believe that I would never do that. Hector furrowed his brows. Gosh, Hector, What's that good for? Sir Moran doesn't believe that. Trent shook his head slowly. Yeah, Trent, how could you black out from drinking at someone's birthday event? You do not have self-control at all. Jacob seemed disappointed and furious at his sibling. The family had enough on their plate, and the new accusation added insult to injury. Uncle Hector, turn yourself in if you were the culprit. Don't drag your family into it. At that moment, a slender and alluring beauty emerged from the crowd. She was Trent's eldest daughter, Kate. Trent had a son and daughter, but after Quentin's death, Kate immediately came to her father's side from Stonia. Kate Harmon, stop spewing nonsense. My dad is not a murderer. Ruth glared at her cousin. Better not get ahead of yourself. It's not uncommon for drunk people to commit crimes accidentally. If Uncle Hector is innocent, why would Sir Moran send his men to arrest him? Kate remarked as if stating the obvious. Ruth was dumbfounded. The accusation might be hard to believe, but there was always a dreadful possibility that it might be true. The problem was that Hector could not recall any memories from that night. Could someone have pinned the murder on him? Dustin blurted out. Natasha, deep in her thoughts, said, the possibility has crossed my mind, but I don't have evidence for now. We need a detailed investigation. It was too much of a coincidence for the murder to happen at that point. She had reason to suspect foul play. I heard that Sir Moran's daughter was murdered after being sexually assaulted. Uncle Hector, did you get horny after you were drunk and took advantage of her? Kate dropped another odd speculation. Bullshit. My dad is not a rapist. Ruth instantly jumped up and down with anger. Natasha and Jessica, though quiet, both frowned at the allegation. Kate was an impertinent young lady. Kate, stop that nonsense. Trent berated his daughter. Your Uncle Hector is a good man. He'll never do anything like that. Someone must have framed him. You'll never know what a man's like behind the back. Who knows? Kate's reply was loaded. That's enough. Are you going to add to the mess that this family is already in? Natasha finally chastised Kate. Kate merely sneered. You shouldn't be yelling at me. Start worrying about cleaning up your dad's mess. Natasha was on the verge of an outburst when Jack ran in with urgency. Ms. Harmon, things are bad. The soldiers out there have barged in.